doing today? Awesome. It's a wonderful day to be alive. Loving all the warm weather-ish that we've been getting with the cold and the rain that's not actually warm, but it's kind of nice because it makes me think of winter and the holiday season that is upon us. How many of you, what was that? Hot chocolate? Yes. Anybody, you guys ever seen Polar Express? Like that scene where the hot chocolate and like the hot chocolate goes, anyway, I love hot chocolate. I'm going to teach my son the Polar Express this year, and he's going to read the book just like I did, and then we're going to watch the movie, and it's going to be a cinematic masterpiece just like it was for me when I was a kid. Anyway, enough of my childhood. Now it's time for this week's lesson in Personal Week 3, because our faith is personal. But before I get into the topic today, I just got to say, I am loving all the new Star Wars content coming out. Like, any other Star Wars fans in here? Like I'm kind of been about some of the Disney stuff, but any Star Wars is Star Wars to me, so I like it. And I especially like The Mandalorian. But one of the characters I did like the most from the sequel trilogy that just came out was the character of Rey. How many of you guys, you liked the character of Rey? Those of you that saw it. I like her, but she's kind of like a complex character. At first, like I remember when The Force Awakens came out in 2015, everybody was asking, who is Rey, right? Who's her parents? How does she fit into the story? Why is she so Force sensitive already? And why is she so strong with her connection to the Force and stuff? And for those of you who don't watch Star Wars, that sounds like a lot of nerd talk, but I promise you, like, it's a good, compelling story. And the whole time you're wondering, like, how does she connect to everything? And she goes through it. She's trying to find her place in everything. She feels this, something inside her calling her and pulling her towards the battle to fight for the good, but she doesn't know what. And she has this strong connection to the Force and to be sensitive to the things around her, and she doesn't know where she fits in, and she doesn't even know where she came from. She just has distant memories of her parents flying away. She doesn't remember who her parents are or where she comes from. And so this is the dilemma and the problem for her throughout the whole series. And in the last movie, they finally kind of reveal the secret. So, spoilers if you haven't seen it, but she's the granddaughter of somebody very important who is not good. But it explains everything. It explains where she came from. It tells her backstory, why she's so powerful, and why ultimately she decides she wants to fight for the good. And you know, knowing her backstory helps you understand all those missing pieces leading up to that. It helps you understand, and it helps you appreciate the character more once you know more about her. You know, the same is true for us, I think. I think many of us, we lack the backstory on people enough to truly understand people. How many people in our schools, in our neighborhoods, on our teams, or even in this room right now, do we just assume that we know? We kind of have this assumption that we know people, but oftentimes we don't even know their backstory. We don't know where they come from. Maybe we've not literally been to their house, but we don't know the story of their family. We don't know the story of what's happened in their life before they came into your life and before you met them and got to know them. The backstory is important, and how many people do we assume that we know when we really don't? Because the reality is that everybody has a backstory. Everybody carries experiences with them into their current story. When I was in school, I had a psychology background, and so I took a lot of psychology classes and counseling classes, and they tell you that you have to ask the right questions if you're going to get to the bottom of an issue. Oftentimes, when you have relational issues with somebody, you know, most of it has nothing to do with that person. We think that we have issues with the person, but in reality, we have either issues with something that's unresolved within inside of us or with a previous relationship that we've had. Because we filter all our current experiences through our past experiences. And so our backstory matters when it comes to our current relationships. And this is super important. But we think that we know each other without knowing the backstory. And that assumption can lead to some really damaging things in our relationships. I think sometimes the question for all of us is this: do we give the same kind of grace and consideration to others that we expect for ourselves? Right? Whenever we're having a rough day, or we lash out at somebody, or we do something that's, you know, we should have thought differently and done it differently, we want people to give us the benefit of the doubt, right? If they only knew the kind of day I've had. If they only knew how stressed I was with all this homework I have going on right now. If they only knew how much I couldn't even concentrate at home or really get anything done because of what's going on with my family right now, then they would give me grace. They would understand. They would give me the benefit of the doubt. They would know I'm trying my best. And we want people to give us the benefit of the doubt due to our backstory, but oftentimes, how often do we not give the same benefit of the doubt to those around us? We don't know their backstory, and we just take what we're seeing at surface level and we make a judgment call about somebody. And how often do we not give that grace and benefit of the doubt to others that we expect others to give to us? We rarely consider the backstories of other people. And this isn't like a middle school thing. This is like a life thing, because all of us at our core are selfish people. And if we're not careful, we can get caught up just thinking about ourselves. You guys have been around people like that, right? That just think about themselves. And are they fun to be around? No, they're not. And the reality is sometimes if we look in the mirror, we are that person. But it's much harder to admit and to recognize when we are that person. It's much easier to recognize from a distance when other people are being that way. So how do you and I begin to see the backstory of other people? So I want you guys to go ahead and split off into your small groups, and we're going to tackle a few questions right now. And then when you guys are, I should have sent you to your small groups before I started, but it slipped my mind. So we are going to do this within groups again this week. So I want you to be with your groups, and I want you to go through a few questions. And then small group leaders, I have papers for you that you'll need for this discussion. And then we'll meet back up here and talk again in a few minutes. All right. So, how we see the backstory in people makes a difference in the assumptions that we make about them. This is important relational advice as well as good stuff to know about the way that Jesus views each and every one of us. So, to kind of, if you haven't been with us the last couple of weeks, we've been going through the story in the life of Zacchaeus. And we've been talking about how Jesus has singled him out from the crowd. And so to just kind of give you a little bit of a recap, Jesus comes into Jericho. Everybody's following him because they want to hear what he has to say. They want to see him heal people. He's earned his reputation, and he's changing people's perspectives on the way they see each other and the way they see God based on his teaching and the parables he had told. And he had proved that he was the person he was claiming to be by the miracles he was doing. And so everybody's following him. He goes into Jericho. And Zacchaeus is not a very well-liked dude. He's a tax collector. He cheats people out of their money. And he was not basically a good person to be around. But he wants to know more about Jesus. And he doesn't just care about money. He wants to know more about what Jesus has to offer. And so he goes and climbs up into that tree, and he waits for Jesus to come along. And Jesus comes along, and out of everybody in the crowd that Jesus could have pointed to and talked to and singled out, he points up to Zacchaeus, and he says, "Hey, I want to come hang out with you today. Check out the verse. This is how it goes down. When Jesus reached the spot, he looked up and said to him, 'Zacchaeus, come down immediately. I must stay at your house today.' So he came down at once and welcomed him gladly." Now, this seems maybe a little strange that Jesus just like invited himself over to his house. But believe me, 2,000 years ago, this would have been completely wild. This would have been out of the ordinary. It would have been worse than strange. But it was a huge honor at the same time. And so Zacchaeus was obviously extremely excited to have Jesus over, and he comes down and he does it. And I don't know how it went down exactly, but imagine, Jesus saying, I know everything. I know your name, first of all. I know everything about you. I know that you're a tax collector. I know you're not well-liked. I know I shouldn't want to hang out at your house, but I do want to come hang with you, and I want to get to know you better. And Jesus knew all about him. People knew all about him. Remember, we talked about last week, the crowd wouldn't have wanted anything to do with Zacchaeus, and we're shocked that Jesus did. But Jesus said, and he made a point out of saying, I don't just know you and know about you, but I want to take a step further and walk into your home. Imagine like him getting over to Zacchaeus' house, and Zacchaeus fires up the grill and starts a barbecue, and Jesus is just sitting there and Zacchaeus welcomes him in, and he just sits there at his table and shares a meal with him and hangs out. This is a huge deal. This isn't something that it would have ever been thought to have done. This is not something that anyone would have thought Jesus would have done. And the reality is, when you go to somebody else's house, it gives you a little bit more of an insight into their life. It gives you an insight of where they come from. See, in your home, it's where you should be the most comfortable. It's where people get to see the part of you that isn't seen anywhere else. I mean, how many of you, you're more yourself at home than you are anywhere else, right? You can kind of let your guard down. You're not trying to impress anybody. And it's when you're at somebody's house, when you're at a friend's house, when you're at somebody's house you've never been before, it helps you know a lot more about them. You get to see how their family functions. You get to see kind of what their home life is like. And it's an insight into their life. Now, Jesus already knew everything about Zacchaeus, but he takes that extra step and says, I want to know you intimately. I want to go to your home and spend time with you. This is a huge deal. Jesus made it personal with Zacchaeus when he took a step to understand where Zacchaeus came from. Instead of just assuming about him what you could see on the outside. And so Jesus comes in and he sits at his table and he starts sharing this meal with Zacchaeus. And I wish I had like a bird's eye view or a fly on the wall view of what's happening in this situation. What did they talk about exactly? Did they talk about Zacchaeus? You know, tell me why you do what you do. Did he talk about like, I want you to know how God sees you and not how everybody else sees you? What did they talk about? I want to know what they talked about over that meal, but we don't get that picture. But the reality is where we live is a part of our backstory, and it's the part that most people, again, typically don't see. And what I want you guys to recognize is that Jesus made it personal by going into to see where he lived, but he makes it personal because he wants to understand your story, and he does understand your story. Jesus makes it personal with you because he understands not only who you are and where you come from, he understands everything about you. He understands your backstory. How many people can you say truly know your backstory, know you better than anybody? Most of us, we probably only have, we can count the people on one hand, the amount of people that really, truly know us. But Jesus is one of those. And the whole story of God sending his son to earth is the fact that Jesus came where we live. He came into our circumstances, into our environments. He left heaven and came to be with us. The author of Hebrews says it so that he is not unable to sympathize with our weakness, with the stuff that we've gone through, because Jesus has gone through it himself. He's been tempted. He's been through hard times. He's lost a parent. He's been through difficult circumstances. And he knows what it's like to live in our shoes. This is pretty huge. Jesus made it personal because he understands Zacchaeus' story and he understands your story. So how do we take that and make our faith personal and with the relationships that we have? Because our faith is lived out through our relationships with others. So how do we make it personal with other people? And first off, I think we just have to acknowledge that first thing, that Jesus does want to know you personally. We have to acknowledge that first. We have to understand, we have to accept that we are valuable to God. Some of us, that's not an issue, but some of us, we have hang-ups and we have things that we feel guarded about. We don't want God to know that part of us, even though we know he does. We don't want God, we don't believe that God truly wants to know us personally, but I want you to acknowledge that Jesus does know you personally. And he made it personal for you 2,000 years ago on that cross, and he makes it personal with you every single day. Then secondly, I want you to let somebody else into your story. The way that you can be personal with others is take a first step and let somebody else into your story. Maybe share something about your life that other people don't know, or maybe something about what you're thinking about lately, what you're going through. Sometimes, we go through seasons of life and we process things differently, and maybe we change our minds about certain topics. But we're always growing and we're always kind of evolving in our mindset a little bit. And so let people into that. Let people into your head a little bit and get to know your backstory and get to know you and the real you, not just the Instagram version of yourself. And secondly, I want you to choose, or lastly, I should say, thirdly, I want you to choose to listen and ask questions to learn more about other people. I want you to learn that relational skill because it shows people that you care and that you are making it personal for them. Just like you want people that can listen to you in your hard times and help you process stuff, it's good for us to be able to know how to ask good questions to each other to show interest in one another's lives beyond just the how are you doing. To make it personal with others the way Jesus made it personal with us. It's personal because Jesus understands your story. So as you guys, I'm going to turn it over to your small group leaders, and as you kind of finish your time together, I want you to ask this question, start with this question. What's one thing most people don't really know about you? And after you go through that, then I'm going to let you guys finish that activity you started earlier and finish your discussion. So small group leaders, I'll let you close it out in prayer when you're done there. And I love you guys, and we'll be back next week.